which of Patrick Mahomes' peers is his greatest rival? So at different times in the NFL is generally defined by the preeminent quarterback of the day. Even at a time when running backs were really the most, or often practically the most important, if not the most important players on their teams and all the rest of that, the league is defined by the great quarterbacks, going all the way back to Sammy Baugh, to Otto Graham, to Johnny Unitas and Bart Starr, to Bradshaw and Staubach, to Montana, to Favre, Aikman, whoever else you wanted to put from that era, and then to Brady and Manning. So the league is defined right now by Patrick Mahomes' greatness, in large part because none of his contemporaries, brilliant though they've been, Lamar Jackson with his 2 MVPs, Burrow having beaten him, and Allen being as just ridiculously good as he is, none of them have won a championship. So none of them can stake a claim to this being their era. They, in no way, until one of them wins a title, none of them can stake a claim to this not being the Mahomes era, right? I mean, so far, we agree.
100%.
Like, I'm not saying anything that's even really debatable, right?
Not yet.
So which of them, in your view, is his greatest rival? I'll give you some numbers. Allen has played him 8 times. They're 4-4, but of great significance. Mahomes has beaten him all 3 times they've played in the playoffs. That should come with an asterisk. And we had a fight about this yesterday, believe it or not. The producer of Sunday NFL Countdown is a guy named Chad Minitillo, who I really like. And he does a terrific job on the show, and he and I have a very good relationship. But I learned yesterday that he is a Josh Allen doubter, a Josh Allen denier, a Josh Allen cynic, critic, whatever the word is. Well, he never wins big games, Greeny. And I said to him yesterday, Chad, this is 7 o'clock in the morning on a Sunday. I said to him, Chad, he walked off the field with a lead with 13 seconds left. That game cannot go down as a loss for Josh Allen. I understand that technically he lost, and so you put an L next to him in the column. But the idea that we're holding that loss of all of them, and last year they miss a kick at the end of the game, and I don't remember what the first one against Kansas City was anymore. I think it was when the Bills were still sort of on the ascent. But the one in the middle that might be the greatest finish in NFL history, or certainly it's on the short list of greatest finishes in NFL history, the 13-second game. The idea that we're going to consider that one on the list of demerits for Josh Allen is ridiculous, right?
Ridiculous. There's no...
I hope Chad is listening to this.
I want to read for you, Greeny, what Josh Allen's numbers are in his 5 playoff losses.
5 playoff defeats. Josh Allen.
He averaged 319 yards a game.
319 yards in his defeats.
That's total offense. His touchdown to turnover ratio is 11-3, and his defense allowed, on average, 31 points. They're not Josh Allen losses. They're Bills losses in which Josh Allen, with rare exception, played out of his ever-loving mind.
Yeah. Rex said it yesterday on TV really well, I thought, on Countdown. He said, Josh Allen has never lost to the Chiefs. His team has, but he's never lost to the Chiefs. So anyway, there's Allen. There's Burrow, who has a winning record all time against Mahomes, 3-2. And they are 1-1 in the playoffs. He went in there and beat him in Arrowhead in the AFC Championship game in overtime, coming from behind to do it, if I'm remembering that game correctly. Didn't Mahomes throw a bad interception in overtime in that game?
It's probably Mahomes' worst half in a big game ever. He just melted down.
It's pretty much his only bad half, right? It's like the only bad game he's ever played in the
only
playoffs.
Other loss was the Super Bowl, and he did not play well in that game, but he had no offensive lineman.
Well, and he lost to Brady in the AFC Championship game in that crazy game where one of the Chiefs was offside.
Yeah, and they scored 31 points in that game.
That was an unbelievable
He played very
game.
well.
That was the game that made Tony Romo a legend.
Yeah, are we not considering Brady as one of Mahomes' peers, one of his rivals?
Yeah, I mean, he would be for the first part of Mahomes' career for sure, especially with these, those playoff games. I think they played a couple times the regular season too. So, I mean, I think Brady just isn't on this list because he's not playing anymore, but he certainly is the one who's gone most toe-to-toe.
I don't think when here's what I'm going to say. When Mahomes' career is done, I don't think we're not going to look back on them as having played in the same era. Yes, they played against each other. They probably played against each other, let's call it a half a dozen times or something like that. They met in 2 playoff games, and Brady beat them both times. One as a Super Bowl. This is not meant as a commentary on Brady in any way. I'm saying Mahomes is going to play another 12 years, right? He's going to play 15 years after Brady retires. He's going to be winning Super Bowls long after Brady gets into the Hall of Fame. They're not of the same era.
But those 2 playoff losses are almost going to guarantee that Brady has more rings than Mahomes does.
Fair enough. I'm not saying no. I guess what I'm saying is it doesn't mean that this is not the Mahomes. Mahomes has an era. He's going to have an era, to use a Taylor Swift term. Like Brady had an era, and now Mahomes
They overlap
is
by
going to have
6
an era.
years. They're a part of the same era. It's Brady's era that extends.
All right, so then are we going to say which of Mahomes' peers is his greatest rival? If we're going to say that, then obviously it's Brady. Because Brady is the greatest player ever.
Both by era and all time. Tom
Okay.
Brady is his greatest rival.
Well, the third option, this option was not put on my screen here. The option that was put on my screen is Lamar Jackson, who was 1-5 against Mahomes all time, 0-1 in the playoffs, which was a terrible loss last year at home when the Ravens definitively had the better team. Now, Lamar Jackson has 2 regular season MVPs. Burrow and Allen have combined for none. So I think if you wanted to argue, there are 2 different arguments. If you wanted to argue who's had the best career so far, Allen, Burrow, or Jackson, you'd probably go Lamar.
You would, yeah.
Right? You would go Lamar because he's won more. I'm guessing he's won more games total.
Oh, yeah.
And because he never loses when he plays. And he's won 2 MVPs, and the other guys have won none. Now, that said, if you want to say which one is the greatest rival to Mahomes, that becomes a playoff conversation. And I would say Mahomes Burrow and Mahomes Allen remind me more of Brady Manning. Like, look, again, I go back in history of the sport. So Bradshaw versus Staubach in Super Bowls was the kind of stuff that you write books about. Someday we quite literally did. But there were so many other great ones. Bradshaw versus Stabler was unbelievable. What a rivalry that was. Those guys going head to head. There have been a million of those over the years. Brett Favre versus Troy Aikman was an incredible rivalry for a significant period of time. The 49ers have to be in that mix somewhere too. Montana, who had his era, and then Steve Young playing against Aikman and against Favre. So it's not the same as asking who's the best player. Forget Brady's the best player. There's nothing there. If we're going to include him, then that ends the conversation. But if we're going to exclude him, if we're going to say players who are roughly of Mahomes' vintage, like I remember doing this, Mahomes versus Brady. I remember doing this when they were playing each other in the Super Bowl. Here's how much of the same era they are not. Are you ready for this? Brady was born, I'm doing this from memory. Brady was born the year the Eagles released Hotel California. Mahomes was born the year Gangsta's Paradise came out. Okay? Now, are those things of the same era? When you listen to Hotel California and you listen to Gangsta's Paradise,
I mean, that's not a question you can ask Hembo.
Yeah, I don't know either of these.
I also was on the same page as Hembo. I thought you were going to say the Eagles released Bobby Hoying or something like that.
Chuck Bednarik.
The same year that the Eagles, Harold Carmichael, set the record. No. The song Hotel California came out the year Brady was born, and the song Gangsta's Paradise, which I think was rapped by a guy named Coolio. Am I getting that right?
Yep.
Was that Coolio?
Yes.
That's for sure.
Do you know that song?
No,
Hembo?
I don't know
In
that
the land
song.
and most our lives living in.
I know the Weird Al Yankovic
And then
remake.
I was going to say, Weird Al got in there, too.
Fair enough. Somehow you know the Weird Al version
Yeah.
of it. Do you know the song Hotel California? You don't know the song Hotel California?
I'm familiar with its work. I've never
work.
listened to it aside from anything
It's
in an
one of the
elevator
best-selling
or a
albums of all
taxi
time.
or in passing.
If you heard it, would you be able to say, I know that song, it's Hotel California?
Probably the chorus. Yeah.
Well, the part where he says, welcome to the Hotel California.
right, but I probably wouldn't
unmistakable.
get you there
Giveaway.
before.
Anyway, I don't know how I digressed into
Who
this.
sings that, by the way?
The Eagles.
That's why he kept saying the Eagles
A band
released
called the
Hotel
Eagles.
California.
I thought that was a Led Zeppelin
All the
song.
more reason you would be expected to like it. 'cause
I really
you're-
don't listen to
you're an
other people on
Eagles
the show.
fan.
You guys are right. Last week they're giving me a really hard time about not listening to others on the show, and I just don't well.
Well, so people, I will say this. You want to be a talk show host, and as well you should be. And the number one piece of advice I give all people who want to be talk show hosts is the following. Most people on planet Earth exist in 2 states, talking and waiting to talk. A host listens. A host hears what everyone else says. So if you're not listening to me and everyone else, that's the first thing you need to clean up. Anyway.
What was that?
I forget. Sorry, I didn't catch that.
I was waiting.
Would you mind repeating that?
I have this good stat I'd like to
Anyway,
give.
Cam, what's the answer? You put the question up. Which of his rivals
I don't know,
is
man.
his biggest rival?
I just pose these questions. I don't have to answer them.
What do you think?
So again, it depends how you define it. I define it as the head-to-head. Like the games head-to-head between the Bills and Chiefs, I think are going to stand the test of time the most. So even though Allen has not accomplished as much as Burrow or Lamar in his career, I think in terms of the head-to-head games and how those guys performed in those games, and yes, like we said, the Bills have really let Allen down more so than Allen has let his team down in any of those losses in the playoffs, and especially to the Chiefs. But I think in terms of his greatest rival, when you look at it head-to-head, I think Josh Allen is his greatest rival.
Yeah, I think he's the best player of the three. Now, again, so far Lamar Jackson has had the best career. None of those guys is 30, right?
No. And are we sure, though, that Lamar deserved that MVP last year in hindsight?
Well, I mean, we made a case that it should have been Josh Allen.
Yeah, I mean, he got 49.
He won it, and we didn't think it was a disgrace.
I think
we
it
didn't
should have been
stand there and
McCaffrey.
say this is the worst award ever.
Right. I mean, he got 49 of the 50 votes, but I'm not so sure that we give that award to the right person every time.
Well, he was the quarterback on the best team.
Right. Well, that's what the award is, though. It's not the best player.
It's become that now. We'll see. I think as a narrative award, it may very well be Allen.